Welcome to the Bell Cow Author Roundup podcast, where we celebrate Minnesota's incredible fiction authors and the stories that make our literary scene so vibrant. I'm Rob Jung.
And I'm Michael MacBride. Together, we're the team behind Bell Cow Productions and the Bell Cow Catalog, a digital catalog designed to connect Minnesota authors with readers, libraries, and indie bookstores.
The catalog will be heading to all 377 Minnesota libraries, 80 plus indie bookstores, plus those in border cities such as Sioux Falls, Fargo, Superior, and La Crosse.
And now with this podcast, we get to bring those amazing voices to life. Every episode features one of our herd members talking about their books, their writing journey, and the stories behind the stories.
And before we start, let us apologize for all the cow-related puns you're about to hear.
All right, let's dig in.
Welcome once again to the Bell Cow Herd podcast. Tonight we are just excited to have Cary Griffith as our guest author. Cary, tell us a little about yourself and a little about how you got into the writing business.
Well, it's been a while since I started writing. I was actually taking a course, Introduction to Literature. I was a biology major when I went to school because I spent a lot of time outdoors and was really interested in flora and fauna and spearing carp and doing all that kind of boyhood, Huck Finn type stuff. And so I was working on my bachelor's degree in biology, and I was forced to take an introduction to literature class. Thank God for requirements, academic requirements. So in that course, I read a short story by Ernest Hemingway called Big Two-Hearted River. And at the time, that story just really struck me like a freight train. And I thought, wow, how did this guy, I didn't know that much about Hemingway. How did this guy do that? Evoke that kind of place. It was about trout fishing up on a river in the Upper Peninsula, and it was just transfixed me. And so I was almost 20 at that time, and I have pretty much been writing ever since in one way, shape, or form.
Wow.
I'd say that was what am I, 29? Now 30, something like that. So why are you laughing?
Obviously not a math major.
Yes, that was not my strong suit.
Okay.
No, but yeah, so I've been writing ever since, and that's really why I got involved with writing.
I'm fascinated that your go-to Hemingway was one of the ones that he wrote when he was in the UP of Michigan. That's not generally the stories that you hear about, Like I know in my American Lit classes, they were Hills Like White Elephants or the one about the bar, they're those stories. But like, I'm kind of curious, what else was in that class? Do you remember any of the other ones that you had to read?
Well,
Hemingway or otherwise, but
yeah, it was one of those compendiums. So, we read some of the classic short stories. The one, oh God, now you're testing my memory.
Well, it's only a couple years ago by your own admission. So
yes, well, thank you. God.
Busted.
Yes, exactly. There was The Lottery. You remember that?
Oh yeah, Shirley Jackson. Yeah.
Shirley Jackson, yeah. There were several short stories, but it was like an anthology. And so we read Emerson, we read Thoreau. It was an introduction to American literature. We read poets. We just read, it was all sorts of stuff in the anthology. So yeah, there was some, and actually, I think that might have been the only Hemingway short story. Hemingway's kind of fallen on. I think if you watched the Ken Burns, documentary on Ernest Hemingway, you thought, wow, he wasn't
very nice.
Yeah, he was not a great guy. no, and he was an alcoholic,
Yeah.
Yeah.
pretty bad alcoholic, and so I I I mentioned that there were a confluence of things in that short story that really spoke to me personally,
Yeah.
apart from it being a pretty good short story, that got me interested, which is why I was hooked.
Yeah,
As long
makes
as we're on
sense.
Hemingway for just a second, have you ever read the chapter out of his book Islands in the Stream where he catches, or his protagonist catches, a 1,400-pound black marlin?
Yes, I've read
I,
that book. There are sections in that book I loved.
I mean, I got done reading that thing and I was sweating
Yeah, he
because I
was
was
so
fighting the
good.
fish.
Yeah, he was so good at that kind of
Yes,
writing, I mean, yeah,
it was
yeah,
amazing. So
yeah. That was a great movie too, if you saw it.
I did not see the movie.
Oh
So
yeah.
It's a rare gift, though, where a writer can be so good at describing things in a detailed manner like that, on one hand, and on the other, also be so economical with words. Like some of his
yeah.
short stories are barely like a screenplay almost. Like they're so stripped away of anything except for dialogue.
Oh
It's
yeah.
incredible that he can swing kind of in both directions. And I mean, absolutely, you're Ken Burns and others are right. It is well documented. He was not a nice guy or
Yeah.
but gifted for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So speaking of e- extraordinary writers, I've only met one who actually has written so well that he has succeeded in making uh, a rattlesnake the hero, and it happens to be Cary Griffith and his book Rattlesnake Bluff. Uh, Cary, you've written both fiction and nonfiction, almost always around some aspect of nature.
Hmm.
Um, is that just because you seem to thrive in that world, and there's stories on both sides of the truth line?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, I've always been interested in the wilderness, and I really did grow up not, I mean, I joke and say it was kind of a Huck Finn existence, but I spent my summers as a kid down in the woods and in a stream, a big stream that we used to go wade in and fish in and do everything. And so I've always loved that. And then when I got to college and studied biology, I was still really interested in biology, even though I eventually majored in literature, in English. But yeah, in both fiction and nonfiction, I've always been drawn to writing about some aspect of nature. In the Sam Rivers mysteries, it's usually involves a species or species, an endangered or threatened species, like the eastern Massasauga rattlesnake, we used to have in southeastern Minnesota, but it's been gone for about 2 decades. And that whole endangered species list thing intrigues me and interests me, what we're doing, or what we're not doing. And then with the nonfiction books, yeah, those are all wilderness things. I wrote about the Ham Lake fire of 2007, that up off the Gunflint Trail that burned a lot of wilderness, and wrote about that huge windstorm. And I've written I wrote a book about two separate survival stories in the North Woods, and those kinds of topics have always intrigued me.
So I grew up in southeastern Michigan, and in Michigan, the only rattlesnake we have is the Massasauga.
Oh,
But
they're
um,
around.
as a fan of snakes and reptiles just in general, I was always the go-to person. People would be like, "Oh my gosh, I think this is one." And eventually it's just like you get to the point where you're like, "No, not only are they shy and reclusive, but they are endangered. Like you would be lucky if you found one, and you're not going to." So like I just
Yes.
kind of told
Yeah.
people like it's very, very unlikely that you're going to encounter one of those. And if you do,
Yeah,
document it. But
yeah.
um, anyway, um, jumping, probably getting a little bit ahead of the game, but I noticed you have book six of Sam Rivers coming out in June, which made me then wonder, do you have a nonfiction project that you're working on? Like, I'm wondering how you stagger those. Do you do them simultaneously or just kind of as they occur to you, or what's that process like?
Um, well, there's a variety of ways they come to me. I don't think you were at the mystery night last night, were you, Michael?
I was not, no.
Michael,
I
you
know,
got
I'm sorry. I heard I missed a good one, so.
yeah, yeah, it was pretty
You
funny.
did.
Yeah, he was pretty funny. But David Housewright was talking about all the different ways that ideas came to him and stuff. And nonfiction comes to me in a variety of ways. Then it's often suggestions by people. The editor of my first two books, the survival stories, and then a book about a wild cave in southeastern Minnesota, was Anne Regan, who worked for the Minnesota Historical Society Press. She's
Yep.
retired now. Great, great editor, great publisher. Loved working with her. But she suggested the Ham Lake Fire book, which I ultimately did write, but it was a few years later, and I went with the University of Minnesota Press for a variety of reasons. And then when I was working on that book, I interviewed a lot of people that said, the reason this fire was so intense was because of that blowdown that happened in '99. And then they would tell me about a dramatic story. And I love those wilderness drama stories. I think a lot of us urbanites, people that spend a lot of time in the comfort of the city and the protection and security of the city, contemporary issues notwithstanding. um, we lose sight of the fact that if you step off the grid up there, things can go bad very quickly with just one misstep. And that has always kind of intrigued me. That intrigued me with the fire. It intrigued me with the survival stories. It intrigued me with the blowdown story. The latest book I'm working on, to get back to your question, is a book about wolf management in Minnesota. So it's really about wolves and wolf management. It's tentatively called The Prism of the Wolf, Learning to Live with an Apex Predator, because that interests me too. It's not only still listed on the endangered species list. We have 3,000 of them in Minnesota right now, and they're very controversial. And so I'm really interested. I'm kind of drawn to that controversy involving a species and how people react to it very differently. And in the urban rural divide in the whole wolf management issue is really interesting, because urbanites are, oh, we should protect them and we should, not. But you get out state with farmers and ranchers and, people that see wolves or experience wolves firsthand, and they have a very different perspective about what to
For
do
sure.
about wolves.
I
Yeah.
am where I live. We have coyotes. We don't have wolves, but they run through our neighborhood at times. And I have found, though I am deeply fascinated. I'm like, oh my gosh, there were coyotes. This is incredible, and I love hearing them and seeing them and stuff. But a lot of my neighbors do not. So we have the divide right here within the urban setting where
Yeah.
there's love-hate of the wildlife around us. And I remember there being a similar kind of argument actually about bald eagles and how they become hazards for chicken farmers and people who have small pets and things like that. And there was a case a number of years ago where a farmer wanted permission to essentially shoot bald eagles because they were terrorizing his flock of chickens. And
Oh,
I don't
wow.
think he won that case because it's a protected animal. But
Yeah,
at the
yeah.
same time, like, what do you do when that thing keeps killing your livelihood? So anyway, sorry,
Oh,
I
yeah.
saw Rob, you had something you're going to say.
So it was on along a similar line, and back in the 19 would have been in late 70s, early 80s in prestigious West Bloomington. Uh, there was a developer that wanted to develop, well-known housing developer who wanted to develop a large tract of land, and the problem was the deer population. And it was an amazing running battle between the powers that wanted to develop that and the people who were trying to protect the deer population, and was finally solved by the issuance of limited licenses to shoot deer in West Bloomington for a very short period of time. So they harvested out about 200 deer uh, in there.
Yeah.
It was I was involved in it because I was representing the developer.
Oh,
So
you were
yeah, back in the
as
old
a
day
as
when I was on the wrong side of most of those issues, you know.
you were a
Yeah,
lawyer.
yeah,
You were the lawyer that representing
yeah,
him. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
I think I vaguely remember that. And
yeah.
they have. I live out in southeast, Rosemount, and we're close to Lebanon Hills, 2,000-acre
Yeah.
park out here, and every year they have a deer hunt. They do it with bows, so it's a bit safer. But there is a period of time in the fall, like 2 or 3 days, where it's posted you don't go in, and they're culling the herd because the deer can overbrowse. That was one of the reasons they introduced wolves to Yellowstone, was because there were so many elk overgrazing everything that they used to shoot them. Back years ago before they reintroduced wolves, but not once they reintroduced wolves, they sort of created a balance. But of course, the elk hunters hated it
Yeah.
because, yeah, and
Oh,
people that love deer in prestigious West Bloomington, they probably hated it for your client too. They
oh,
didn't,
yeah.
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 But they
Yeah.
can do it. They can overpopulate areas as well.
Oh. So, do you have something out of one of your books you would like to read for us?
Well, I'll read just very briefly out of Rattlesnake Bluff. It's like 2-3 minutes where we meet Sam, and Sam Rivers is the character I write about, a special agent for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife, where we meet Sam and Carmel um, over breakfast. This is really chapter 2. I almost always do this in these mysteries that I write. I violate a well-worn trope, which is usually you introduce the protagonist in the first pages or the first chapter of your book. I usually don't get around to it until the second or third chapter, and it was the third chapter in Rattlesnake Bluff because I'm introducing other things. Like in Rattlesnake Bluff, I begin with a terrible murder of 2 children that happens on a remote road down in southeastern Minnesota. But anyway, so this introduces, and last night David Housewright was talking about Elmore Leonard.
Mm.
And coincidentally, I had probably 2 months ago, I stumbled across his 10 rules of writing. And one of the things, David, I don't know are you familiar with that book,
I
Rob?
am. I am one
Yeah,
of
I
my
mean,
favorites.
yeah, and it's nothing. I mean, it's like it's not a
10
book.
pages.
Yeah,
It's 10 pages.
exactly. How they're selling it as a book. I mean, I was suckered into it. But and I'm sorry, Michael, you write too? Do
I
you?
do, yeah. I do
Yeah.
fiction, nonfiction, all kinds of things. I'm just super curious, and I just do whatever I'm most interested in at the moment. So
Oh, good for you. Good for you.
yeah.
Um, anyway, when he was talking about Elmore Leonard, I Elmore Leonard is big. He's kind of Hemingway-esque in a way, don't keep the description to a minimum, accentuate the dialogue. And when I introduce Sam Rivers and Carmel in this piece, that's sort of what I do.
Yeah.
Let me see.
Cary, before you start, and as long as you brought up Elmore Leonard and his 10 rules,
Yeah. Yeah.
Elmore's first rule is leave out the parts that the readers skip. That's
Yeah.
rule number one in his book.
Yeah. If we only knew.
If we only knew, yeah.
Yes. Okay. This is chapter 2. There was a prologue, so this is really the third chapter. Sam Rivers and Carmel Rodriguez sat at her kitchen table, finishing breakfast. Between them lay a pile of returned wedding RSVPs. A list with more than 100 names rested beside the small stack of postcards. Most names had a Y next to them. There were less than 10 with an N, those who indicated they could not attend Sam and Carmel's late fall wedding. There were maybe another 20 without any mark, nearly all Sam's invitees. The unmarked were people who had not yet responded. A lack of communication Carmel considered rude. You need to reach out to these people, Carmel said, tapping the sheet like a drum. We need to know if they're coming. Sam frowned, chewing slowly, buying time. Carmel said, some psychologists believe managing the wedding details is the couple's first real relationship test. Sam kept chewing and thinking. Then he swallowed and said, I thought the first real test of the relationship was, well, the first time you slept together. Is that a joke? Carmel said. Clearly, she didn't think so. Sam paused. Sort of. Not funny, Rivers. The wedding is in 2 months. We need to let the caterers know how many people are attending. We also need to let the lodge know how many rooms to reserve. Why haven't your people responded? They were getting married at Gitchigami Lodge on Lake Superior's North Shore. Sam loved Carmel and admired her work as a veterinarian, and he was looking forward to getting married up north. He even enjoyed working on some of the wedding details, time permitting. It was Sam who nixed the salmon dinner option in favor of Minnesota's favorite fish, walleye, even though it was more expensive. And the Gitchigami Lodge was Sam's suggestion. But he didn't have the bandwidth to track down every person on his list who hadn't responded. He figured, given a little more time, they would respond. But he knew reminding Carmel that patience was a virtue would be poorly received given the heat of the moment. Fortuitously, his phone buzzed. It was his boss, Kay Magdalene. It was 7:30, 6:30 for Kay, who worked out of the Denver office. I got to pick up, Sam said. She wouldn't call this early unless it was important. Carmel understood. As long as he understood, they weren't finished. Rivers, he said, picking up the list of wedding invites and seeing Kay was one of those who had not responded. I hope you're calling about our wedding. What? She sounded irritated. Was he pissing off everyone this morning? Our wedding invite, Sam said. You haven't RSVP'd. There was a pause. Then, God damn it, Rivers. That's not why I called. Now's not the time. That sort of follows Elmore Leonard's, get out of the way and let your characters talk.
Yeah. Yeah. Very good. Very good. So what's next? What's coming up next for Cary Griffith?
Well, the Wolf Management book I've got about probably half of it written, and it's due. That Wolf Management book, back to your question, Michael, was suggested to me by the publisher of Adventure Keen, who publishes the mystery novels. They also, actually, their primary, the books they publish are nature guides and nonfiction, a variety of nonfiction. So they were interested in a book that sort of covered the wolf management controversy.
Did they send you up north to the Ely Wolf Center?
Oh yeah, well, I've been up there several times. I was just up there in October interviewing there's a well-known wolf researcher, Tom Gable, the
Okay.
Voyager Wolf Project, who, yeah, I was up there interviewing him. Did they send me up? No, I don't know. Adventure Keen doesn't give me an expense account. I'm
Yeah.
just naturally, but I am naturally interested in that stuff. So,
Yeah.
a lot of times I'll go up and I'll be doing a reading, or on a library appearance or something, and I'll piggyback on some of the nonfiction research that I've got to do. Um, yeah. So I'm halfway through it, but it's due at the end of the first quarter. So I've got a lot of writing to do, but it's coming along well. And then I've got an idea for this seventh Sam Rivers mystery, which involves, there's different themes I explore in these besides the nature, which involves nature, of course. That's how Sam Rivers gets involved, but also euthanasia.
Hmm.
And it's called The Final Foray. So I've got a title. I have a vague idea about what happens. And so I've got to get working on it
So
soon
Have
because,
you have Carrie, have you ever been in the caves down in Harmony around Harmony, Minnesota?
oh, yeah, absolutely. My second book was Opening Goliath, the story about a wild Goliath cave in southeastern Minnesota, which is about 15 miles from Harmony.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Those,
I have not read that book, but it's curious because I was there with one of my grandsons a couple of years ago, and I thought, what a interesting place, and the place could be a character in the book, and I've played around with that location uh, with book ideas for a while. I haven't come up with anything yet, but I thought, what a grand place to have something happen or to just to track history.
oh, yeah. Yeah.
and Harmony is a great city name for all kinds of things, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
indeed.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
And caves are always intriguing. They're pretty interesting.
Okay. So
So
what was the name of the book of your book that was that a Sam Rivers book?
No, that was a nonfiction book. That's the book that won a Minnesota Book Award. It was called Opening Goliath: Danger and Discovery in Caving. But it was really about um, the politics surrounding the discovery, exploration, and management of a wild cave. That cave is real close to Mystery Cave State Park. In fact, they think they've mapped about 3 miles of Goliath Cave. You can't really get in there. The DNR owns it. It's a SNA, a scientific and natural area, the area where that has the entrance to it.
Okay.
The book is about how it was found. For a long time, it was open, and wild cavers went in there. Minnesota cavers. Um, and there were some. I talk about some instances where people nearly died in there, uh,
Yeah.
and how it was open. It was closed by the Minnesota DNR. They put up bars in it, and then this guy, John Ackerman, have you ever heard of him? He owns a whole bunch of caves, wild caves in southeastern Minnesota.
hmm.
He's a real cave enthusiast, and he has enough money to buy up these properties. And he's done that, and he bought land over where he knew a shaft of Goliath Cave was, and he sunk a like 60-foot shaft down to the cave entrance, and then he put in ladders so you could hike down into the cave, and he opened it up for cavers again to sort of bypass the Minnesota DNR.
Wow.
And yeah, it was
Oh,
he's a very controversial figure in the caving community, but that book is about that kind of thing.
okay.
Yeah.
So you
Well,
mentioned book seven that you're working on of Sam Rivers. What is book six about? I saw that was coming out in June, but I realized we kind of glossed over that. So
Well, that's called Grizzly Narrows. That's obviously we don't have all of my books are set in Minnesota, fiction and nonfiction, and we don't have grizzlies in Minnesota. We've never had grizzly bears in Minnesota. But they have sort of made a comeback like the wolves, like some of the apex predators out west. Sam Rivers sort of reprises an experience he had early on when he was a young special agent for the U.S. Fish and Wildlife that involved a grizzly poacher. And he's actually in northeastern Minnesota, and he's being stalked by a couple of people that want to kill him. And they use that experience that he had back with the grizzly bear to sort of lure him out. They use a grizzly head as that they've gotten legally from Yukon, from up in Canada, to lure him to this place where they're going to shoot him. And one thing leads to another, and pretty soon you're off and running. That's that's
Yeah,
Grizzly
nice.
Narrows. Most of it takes place in northeastern Minnesota.
Cool.
One of the there's a question we sometimes ask in our lightning round that I think is particularly appropriate to you. If the sky wasn't blue, what color would you paint it?
Green.
Why?
That's my favorite color. And green, green is the color of verdure. Green is the color of plants, going outside in the deep summer. That's always been my favorite color, verdure.
Cool.
Okay.
I like it.
Well, and Cary Griffith sounds like it might have some Irish connection. Speaking of green.
Well, no, well, sort of. Griffith is Welsh.
Well, okay.
Yeah. So nearby.
Different island.
Um, yeah,
Different island, yeah.
different island, yeah. And Cary is, I think Cary is Welsh slash. I was actually named after a dentist turned professional golfer. My dad was a dentist and he loved to play golf. And there was a professional golfer on tour at the time called Cary
Cary
Middlecoff.
Middlecoff, yeah.
Do you
Oh,
remember it?
absolutely. Yeah.
Rob, you're
So
about
I
the
did.
first guy that has heard of Cary Middlecoff. Yeah.
You gotta hang out with older people.
I do.
Older people who
I
watched
do.
golf, though.
Yes.
Well,
Yeah. Oh, older
yeah,
people that know golf. Yeah, he's a rare guy.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, he won a few tournaments in his day.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
Michael, you,
He
you
was-
got any
Yeah, I was gonna
fastball
ask.
questions?
I mean, if you focus on all the different, I mean, southeastern Minnesota, northeastern Minnesota, I'm curious, like what places of the state have you not visited that are still on your list to go to?
Oh, wow. John Toran is a writer, a local writer, friend of mine, and he wrote a book called The Seven States of Minnesota, which really broke the state down in along geography, more or less. But, there's very distinct, different habitats around. There's about seven of them, and I'd like to cover each of them. But the one that I haven't written anything about Duluth. So, Final Foray actually takes place up in, I think it's called the Rice. It's a wildlife management area. It's just west of Duluth, called Rice. That's where some of the novel is going to take place. And then some of the novel is going to take place in Duluth. I haven't really written anything about Duluth or that
Cool.
area. So sort of
Yeah.
central Minnesota.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, what's left on your literary? This is kind of the same question, but a little broader. What's left on your literary bucket list? Not tied to any geographical area.
Oh, um, well, I've toyed with writing a memoir about, uh, you know, for me, it's always about what theme are you going to explore? And for me, the theme would be third son. I was a third son, and I haven't seen a lot of memoirs that talk about the importance of birth order.
Oh,
Not that I'm a big
interesting.
memoir writer, but yeah, there's a lot of research on the importance of birth order in families and how it can mold you and form you. And I've really, over the course of my life, felt like I had two older brothers and a younger sister, and that placement in my family had a significant impact on me, just as the eldest for my oldest brother had impact on him too. So I'd like to explore that, I guess. I definitely want to keep sort of a nonfiction book every 2 or 3 years and a mystery novel every year, or so, year to 16, 18 months. So I definitely want to keep that stuff up. And, you know, that's probably about it.
It's good to have a list of things like that. I like it.
Yeah.
There was a
Yeah.
article probably, I don't know, 10 or 15 years ago, I remember reading that talked about how it wasn't quite birth order, but kind of. It talked about how no two children, unless they're twins, have the same set of parents because you have one child, you learn stuff. Your second child, you know things that you didn't know the first time around. You're generally more financially better off later in life. And so, as that birth order goes along, each child has a different frame for their parents that the other ones don't share. And I always thought that
Yeah.
was really interesting. I don't know what to do with it, but maybe it'll be of use to you. So, but
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. Yeah, I've thought about that. I mean, my eldest brother is 4 years older than me. He's a type A personality. Of course, he was the one my parents first had around, and they wanted to do the right thing and do. And then my
sure.
other, next brother is 3 years older, and he was kind of a wild,
Well,
not
he's
the
a
black.
backup child. He's fine.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Well, he put my parents through a lot. Ultimately, he's a dean in a university, East Carolina University. Um, so he came out of it, but because he put my parents through that, and I was 3 years younger than him, I could do anything. I mean, they didn't. My parents were not phased at all. So yeah, it makes a big difference.
They broke him in for you, for sure. So
Yeah,
I'm going to do the food
exactly.
question, which is if we came over to your house, what are you known for cooking? Like, what's a favorite dish you like making?
Well, usually what I've been doing lately to try and keep my weight down is I fast until lunchtime, and then I have breakfast, which is fried eggs or a fried egg and toast and a standard um, you know breakfast, but try to go as light as possible. But I do like to cook. Um, let's say I like I I will bake chocolate chip cookies.
Ooh.
Yeah, yeah, and I use that. My wife uses the recipe on the Toll House bag, and does she modifies it a little bit, but boy, it is really good. And then, like probably a lot of comfort foods, spaghetti. I like to cook fish. We eat a lot more fish. I don't eat a whole lot of red meat at all. I had my daughter and her family over Sunday night and made tacos, set up all the taco fixings and stuff for them. So pretty, pretty unimaginative, I suppose, but
Well, but
Nice.
have you ever eaten rattlesnake?
no, no, I
Okay.
haven't. But I do mention in the book that Jules, the guy who finds the rattlesnake, says it tastes a little gamey, like a cross between frog legs and turtle. And I have eaten frog legs and turtle.
I have too. And I've also have eaten rattlesnake because
Where?
I'll try anything you put in front of me. So it was not particularly pleasant.
Oh yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
anyway,
I've heard people eat them. Where did you eat a rattlesnake?
And
Eat rattlesnake.
I grew up in a river town in Wisconsin, and we had a town character named Mushrat Jaseski, who was just the town recluse. We used to if we caught a snapping turtle as kids, like 8, 9 years old,
Yeah.
we'd we'd go home and borrow mom's broom and get the snapping turtle to bite it in the middle, and then after he'd do that, we'd pick him up, carry him over our shoulders to chip mushrats, and he'd pay us $5 for it, so he could make turtle soup. And one of those times we were there, he said, "You want to try rattlesnake?" So,
Oh my gosh.
and it hasn't
Wow.
affected me at all.
Boy,
No, I
that
was,
is a
I
great name. That is a great
Yeah.
story. You should write about that.
well, I grew up like you, close to nature,
Yeah.
on the river. So and yeah, there's a lot of stories like that in my background. Anyway, Carrie, we're going to have to draw it to a close. Have you got anything more that we would like to pass on to your fans, your readers, your friends before we close it out?
No, not at all. But I really want to thank you guys for doing this. I mean, this is great. We writers appreciate it. You guys, both writers, I know you enjoy it. I enjoy seeing these and listening to them, and of course, Rob, the work you do with Minnesota Mystery Night is excellent.
Thank you.
We
Yeah.
we really appreciate it.
Well,
So
thank you.
thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank
Thank you
you.
right back. It's wonderful having you. It was great chatting, and definitely look forward to doing it again.
And don't forget, you can see this book and more from Minnesota authors in the Bell Cow catalog, heading to libraries and indie bookstores across Minnesota and beyond.
Thanks for tuning in to the Bell Cow Author Roundup podcast. We'll be back next Tuesday with another amazing Minnesota author.